This is Shooting Your Mouth Off, Volume 1. Special guest, Kaleb Blaque.
What's up, everybody?
All right, Kaleb. We're going to start from the very beginning.
All right, let's take it back.
And just run through things from there. How'd you get your start in the independents?
I got my start at Heartland Championship Wrestling. A small group of us, Tony Flood, Jay Spade, Dante Ember. Tony and Jay started training first. They brought us down. I bumped all day, and then I worked 3 matches.
3 matches, your first show ever?
3 matches, my first show ever. I was in 2 Battle Royals and a singles match with Davey Boy Slow.
1 second. 2 Battle Royals in one night?
Yeah, it was one for the heavyweight title and one for their second tier title. It was either like the Southern Illinois title or the light heavyweight title. I don't remember which, but and 2 Battle Royals. And it was the Drizzling Shits. I was the Drizzling Shits. The guy I wrestled, Davey Boy Slow, was the Drizzling Shits, and he still is.
How long did you stay in HCW for?
We were there maybe 6 months. I had to take a liaison right after I started training because I fucked up my hand, had to get a surgery, had to have it repaired. And then as soon as I was healed, I was back in the ring bumping like it was nobody's business. First match back was against Rob Justice and his tag partner, whose name I can never remember, but I know I'm related to him somehow through my family in Missouri. And it was me and Dante Ember versus him, and then I was in a 3-way at the beginning of the night with Danny Ice, Dante Ember, and myself. Dante Ember at the time went by the name Bloodline.
How do you feel about your memories in HCW? I mean, how does it affect your career and everything? How was all that?
The place itself was awful. We wrestled in a sweat box. We had some cool matches at the Moose Lodge in Anna. You know, we did some cool shit, but, you know, back then I was just about wrestling. Like, I was stupid green. I mean...
How old were you when you first broke in?
17. It was like May 18th was the first day we went up and trained, so I'm coming up on my 6 years. And on the whole, like, there were a lot of politics and shit we didn't agree with. And that's why we left HCW and started iCall. So...
That was your second promotion, iCall, or were you anywhere before that?
I started Renegade Pro Wrestling in Metropolis. And despite what anybody else says, there were really great days when we first started. The place was always packed. We had quality workers from Kentucky and Indiana. We really... The place didn't start going downhill until about the first year and a half, 2 years.
Okay. Before we move on, with more feds and stuff and progression, random questions I'm going to throw in here.
Sure.
What's your biggest regret, the biggest thing that's ever halted you, the biggest mistake you've made in the business, things like that, if there's more than one?
Some of my biggest mistakes was not going, first off, to a legitimate training school. I didn't do that until about 2 years in, and I was just learning on the fly. Another thing, man, like, I had a lot of dates I couldn't make, because, I was still young, I didn't own my own car, and so I was constantly canceling, and then I'd get really good dates for other places, and I couldn't make those either, so it sucked.
So you gave yourself a pretty bad name starting out?
Yeah, well, no, not necessarily, because I was still a solid worker, and I was always honest about when I couldn't make it, but it was like, we'd get really hot going with something, and then I'd miss a show for RPW, and then we just, we lost all momentum with it, because that place, flipped the script so much that it wasn't worth putting a story into it anyway, so. Now,
you said that you guys were pretty hot at first for RPW. How long were you there?
2 years? 2.5.
Tell me about the downward spiral. What started it and what?
Well, I'll put it like this. First, man, like, I remember my first string, I wrestled like Pretty Boy for 6 months straight in the main event. We always packed the house. Then winter came, and, the place didn't have heating. The place that wasn't properly insulated, so people stopped coming. When they stopped coming, they stopped being interested. So the stories just fell out because no one was there to watch it. No one was there to see the work we were doing. We were wrestling in front of 6 people with a blistering fucking cold, and it was miserable. Not getting paid, and it wasn't fun.
Now,
it's not being fun.
That was when you got your first success in any championships, right?
Yeah. My very first singles title there, I won a ladder match against Cash Cavins, CJ Pop, and I think Mickey Taylor. Mickey Taylor or Bone Crusher, one of the two, I don't remember. But yeah, it was like 4 or 5 of us in a ladder match, and I won.
Now, what finally got you to leave that promotion?
I just stopped going. We had a big fight one night where I got fired. They brought me back 2 weeks later. And then everything went back to normal. Things were good for a minute, and then things just started going bad again. And iCall was picking up steam, and bad business, bad politics all around. So
what exactly did you get fired over?
I was late to a show, and actually, Coach himself was there. He drove. We got lost on the way there because I didn't know how to get to Metropolis yet. We were only 15 minutes late. They pulled me off the card. So I'm like, that's fine. I'll go sit out in the crowd. We'll go sit out in the crowd. And CJ Pop was under a hood. And mistakenly, I called his CJ Pop under the hood. And it wasn't even like a big thing where I'm yelling at CJ Pop. I was talking to a kid next to me, and I accidentally said CJ Pop, and the crowd was dead. So they heard me, and then Big Bill pulled me in the back. He yelled in my face and fired me. I tried to shake his hand, and he refused. And then 2 weeks later, my buddies are putting on a real cool match. I messaged Tojo, and I'm like, hey, man, I want to come down and check it out. And he's like, that's fine. And then the next day, he's like, bring your gear. You're working Jose Guerrero. And then Jose and I tore it up. It was real good. It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
And then, yeah, man, just like I said, progressively crowds stopped coming. People stopped caring. The business itself started getting a bad name. And, you know, CPW started back up, and they were really picking up steam. And, you know, it was a fight for the territory, and CPW won.
Well, you kept, you've mentioned iCall a few different times. Let me hear about that quite a bit.
Well, they started, like I said, it was the deflectors from Heartland Championship Wrestling. We started at a garage in Anna. Starting out, you know, there were some really great matches, some not so great matches. A lot of us were still really green, you know, but it started becoming something fairly quickly, and we were doing good shit. And that's where I had like my crowning achievement heel turn ever in wrestling was at iCall, and you know, progressively. I was their, you know, I was their Patriot champion, and I couldn't make a show, so they stripped me of the title. I've never actually lost it, just so everybody fucking knows. Still the best Patriot champion I ever had, because I beat, like... But when I first started going back, like, I stopped getting booked up there because I couldn't make it once again. Then when I started going regularly, I won, like, 14 weeks in a row. They put me over, and I was hot, and then we did the heel turn, and it was even bigger because I joined Bad Company, which was the big heel faction. And the heel turn itself was, like, a masterpiece. Like, I can't explain how good and how scientifically perfect it was, but it just was. That's the first night I ever had fans legitimately hate me, and it was like the most exhilarating feeling in the world.
Now, what's the biggest achievement? Like, maybe not in the ring, but in the business overall. When did you... A moment when you really just felt like it all made sense and you're here for a reason. I mean, it could be anything, but when you just knew. I mean, it could be talking to a vet. It could be a Pacific match. When you just knew you were doing the right thing.
I had two, actually. Rosie put me over at RPW. He told me he really loved this match that we did, and it went over real big, and it was real good. And he had a lot of solid things to say about me. And then my biggest moment, honestly, was my last match at iCall. My technical last match, and the crowd stood up and they chanted, "Please don't go," and they did that for like 5 minutes straight. I'm starting to get emotional about it, just thinking about it. It showed me that the work I put in really mattered to them, and it was awesome. I wrestled LBK, and and this was really recent, but it was probably my favorite match to date.
Now we're almost caught up to speed as far as I know, right?
Yeah. As soon as that was over, I ended up here at Strictly, and I've been here ever since.
How do you feel about your time here and what's going on with you here?
I'm loving it, man. Sam's the boss. Sam's a genius when it comes to wrestling. And the guy in the locker room is the most talented locker room I've ever been a part of. You know, these guys get it, man. It's all good business here. I have zero complaints. That's how, you know, Austin Rose and I started the tag team here. We're starting to pick up bookings all over the place. Things are going good.
You're branching out to different states also?
Yeah. We got 2 bookings in Tennessee so far. And that's not a whole lot to a lot of guys. Like, a lot of guys are like, oh, 2 bookings is nothing. But for me, you know, I can only wrestle on Saturdays because I have an important my shoot job is on Fridays and Sundays. So my only weekend dates are Saturdays. And so the fact that I can go out of state and I have that opportunity really means a lot to me. A lot of guys out there will piss on that and go like, oh, that's nothing. But to me, that really means something.
How long have you guys been a tag team, the Bleeding Hearts? How long has that been going on?
2 months, 3 months, somewhere there. Maybe it's been a little bit longer. But
now, I don't know about anywhere else, but I know in Strictly you guys are still undefeated.
Yeah, we are. We lost our first Tennessee debut to one of the resident tag teams there, which will be going back on the 3rd at Swag. And then we debut at AAW like May 17th. So we're looking forward to that.
Any other things? I mean, to any indie workers that are watching here that you'd like them to know about the business or, you know, educate?
when you get in the business, your perspective as in wrestling changes. I watch wrestling now and I see things that I wish I never learned about, and I see stories that I wish would have happened. And, you know, it's like I look at it from the business perspective of things that could have occurred. You know, as a fan, not everything makes sense to you, but as a worker, you see the bottom line, which is the money. And everything makes sense when the money's right, so it's fine.
Any things you want to get off your chest that you haven't been able to say, or?
There are a lot of guys who talk a lot of shit and put me down, put other workers down that work really hard. And a lot of those guys I wrestle on the same cards with, so it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Like, we're in the business together. Clearly, there are always going to be better guys in the locker room. There are guys in that locker room I'll never be able to touch as far as talent goes. They're good, they're great, and that's awesome. You know, but I'm learning, still learning after 6 years. There's tons of shit I don't know. But it's like, no one has ever done getting better, and it's like, you never reach that precipice, so keep busting your ass because you don't know what can happen tomorrow. I got a buddy right now who has been getting calls all about him, and, you know, he's one of the best I've ever seen, and nobody else seems to think it, but clearly he's doing the right fucking thing because people are calling about it.
Who do you say are the biggest and the people you learn the most from that really helped you get to the point you are today?
Mike Slade, I can show you from ICOL. They really took me in, they taught me a lot. Danny Ice taught me a lot. I learned a lot working at RPW. I learned a lot from Jose Guerrero. He really taught me some shit that I do now. So there are a lot of guys that are responsible for who I am. My buddy Luke, he's the one I sit back and watch wrestling with. Before I started wrestling, he's the one who inspired me, you know, pushed me to do it. And he's been by my side ever since. He's here tonight. And he's always, you know, looking out for me. It's like and it's not just wrestlers, like there are people who make you feel good about what you do. I got called out on the street one time by a street magician who happened to come and see the show. And he was like, "Oh man, you're really good. I've been called out at car shows with random people who are like, oh, I saw you at this show," and that's cool to me. You know, it's the fans really who make this awesome. There was one time a kid came up to me at RPW and he made an action figure of me from a Miz action figure and other ones, and he was like, "This is KB Chaser." This is my old ring name. And it was like that fucking kid took his time, got that super glue, broke up those action figures, made KB Chaser, and they're a fucking amp. That's awesome. So, fuck everybody else who doesn't have a good time doing this because I fucking love it.
Now, where do you see yourself in like 6 months? What is this 6 month goal? Because I know everybody's goal is to make it, but
my goal in 6 months is to just get the Bleeding Hearts to as many promotions as possible. Get our name out there, get seen by as many guys. This is the first time in a long time in my career. I used to go all over the place, you know, when I was like 19, but I was really young then. And now I've got responsibilities and shit. But, like, I've got a full 2 months worth of bookings, and I'm booked into January. And it's only May? Not even May yet, April? So that's awesome. Like, I want Austin Rose and I to go to as many places as possible.
Tell me about this Austin Rose kid that you started the tag team with. Give me a little flavor on this kid.
I saw him at a DODPW show, and I was like, this fucking kid and I are going to do good business. And then we got to an ICOL show, and the booker was like, you can bring in somebody you want to work. And I was like, bring in Rose. Rose and I worked, and I loved it ever since. And then as soon as I got to Strictly, I started talking to a friend of mine, you actually. And I was like, man, I want Rose and I to be a tag team. I don't know how to go about it. And then 2 weeks later, without even saying anything, the promoter was like, we're going to put KB and Rose together. And this shit just jives, man. It jives so well.
Who, work-wise, who would say is been your biggest rival through your career, or biggest rivals?
Brandon Wolf, hands down. That guy and I have torn up every Chester Mania in my head, like, for the past 5 years. And he and I always did awesome shit to me. We started out as a tag team. We were ICOL tag champions. And then, like, first Chester Mania, we won the #1 contendership for the titles. Second Chester Mania, well, actually my third one, because the first one we did was HCW. But the second ICOL Chester Mania, it was me and Nick Steele. And we took on EJ Storm and Brandon Wolf. The following year, Wolf beat me in the main event for the World Heavyweight title. The following year, I beat him for, well, not World Heavyweight title, but Heavyweight title of ICOL. And then the following year, I beat him for the Heavyweight title. So it's like, all across the board, every September, I know that I'm going to wrestle Brandon Wolf in his hometown, which, that sucks, by the way, because they don't boo him. It doesn't matter what I do. Like, this last match, I got mad and cussed out the crowd, which I do a lot, because I'm an asshole. But, like, we went out, I was supposed to be face, and they didn't jive it, so I had to flip the script, and then I won the match, and I was like, You people are the worst fucking wrestling fans in the world, and that wasn't good business. Don't ever do that. Don't ever get mad at the fans, because that comes back to haunt you later.
Okay. Anybody you want to call out or anything like that? Or I mean,
There's
right
Austin
now,
Rose right there. Look at him. Yeah. There he is. That's the other half of the Bleeding Hearts.
he is hidden
You know, man,
over there somewhere by the car. You can see
there,
his little
there
head.
are a lot of guys I want to say a lot of shit to, but I'm not going to waste my time because it's going to go in one ear and out the other. There are some guys out there who think they're the shit when they're just plain not. They're good, but they're not as good as they like to believe they are, and it's like, just, you know, fucking do your shit, worry about you, get over, make your money, and mind your fucking business. And if you can't do that, then you're in the wrong fucking business to be in. You know, I try not to put anybody on blast. I try to keep my mouth shut. I try to just learn and shit. And some guys just don't get that. Some guys always have something bad to say about somebody else, and that sucks. So, that's what Caleb Blaque has to say.
Okay. Well, thank you for spending your time with shooting your mouth off.
Thank you, Coach. I'm going to go get ready for my match.
All right, you have a good one, baby.
I'm gonna.